What's up, everybody? Welcome to the LeverUp podcast. I'm your co-host, Jim Cavale, the founder and CEO of Influencer, joining you from the Influencer HQ today in Birmingham, Alabama. We have a special guest and an awesome conversation ahead. I'm going to set it up to Nashville to our other co-host, founder and CEO of On3, Shannon Terry. Shannon?
Thanks, Jim. Very happy to be here. So Trent, I started doing some just background research. Obviously I know you, I know what you're about. I want to get the facts right. So first round pick, 14 years in the NFL, Super Bowl champion, ESPN career, awesome. We may know you more for that. Okay. High school head coach and awesome work, what you're doing there in the community. I found something in football that you have not done.
What is that?
An NIL deal.
That's true.
You did not get it.
I did not.
Yeah.
I wish I would have.
But if you look at your long history here and what sports and football has meant to you and meant to your family, it's like, I've always said every relationship I have, every opportunity I've had has come through sports. And so that's what NIL is in large part. And that's what college athletics, high school athletes about. And that's why we're here. We're doing this for the kids. So I'm going to start this off with one question. Don't wear this. And you've got the lens of the pro, the coach, the player, high school player, all of it. This is just from the college perspective, okay? Your perspective from the college perspective, not high school, of NIL.
Okay, so I'll answer that question with a little contextual setup. I believe that coaching should be kid-centric. I think everything should be kid-centric. Unfortunately, it's become coach-centric. It's become booster-centric. It's become institutional-centric. It's become what it shouldn't be, and that's about the kid. So in that context, I think NIL is great. I think it's amazing that now players are able to capitalize on their name, image, likeness. They can create an income stream for themselves while they're college athletes. They can provide for their families, and that's something that's not being talked about enough. Is one of the best things here. There's a lot of families that don't have a lot of means, and sports has been their investment into their child. It got their child to get a college education, which is amazing. But from that college education, that player can also provide for them, their families, and get them to a better spot. So overall, and I'm sure we'll dig into this a lot, but overall, I'm a massive fan of NIL.
So high school.
Yep.
Let's just jump straight to that, because I think it's 13 or 14 states. It's available to high school athletes. Most of the states where most of the talent. It's not. So what's your view from that? And listen, you're right in the middle of it. You have great players. You have 4 stars. You have 5 stars. You're probably looking at the state across the street.
Where are they going to take my guys?
So should high school kids be able to participate in NIL? And then, what are the ramifications for that?
Yeah, that's an interesting one, and I'm still wrapping my brain around it. So I don't know if I have a definitive answer there. And part of this, I'll be honest, might be a little fear-based, because I have 10 players that are big-time players. They're going to play on Saturdays, and some of them may play on Sundays. And the fear is that we know we're giving them best-in-class resources, best-in-class coaching, human development, helping them academically, making them better people. And then if a state that has the ability to give NIL can come in and poach one of those players for some money, it's like, I'm torn, because I want them to be part of us. I want them to help us win. I want to pour into that kid, but I also don't want to hold that kid back from making some money. And I've been asked a question. We have one player specifically, I'm not going to use his name, that if somebody came and said, hey, this high school, this state could give him X amount of money, how would you feel about that? And I said, honestly, I think I'd have to release him and be happy about it. If we can't provide, if we can't match it, if we can't find a way to provide for him and his family, then I'd have to, with open arms, say, hey, this is a great opportunity for you economically. And you should, and especially if the school he was going to provided some of the same development that we do here at Lipscomb Academy. So it's a tough one. I don't know where that road's headed, and it's one that every day in our office we sit around and talk about. I mean, we're trying to prepare for that if Tennessee becomes one of those states that can provide NIL opportunities for players. But now it's high school football. It's hard to provide the type of resources that some other places can.
Well, and Trent, the thing is I think out of everything you said, it makes complete sense, and it's awesome. You really do put the kids first, and I think both Shannon and I have already learned that about you, just getting to know you, how you've built the program you've built at Lipscomb Academy. But one thing I would correct you on is you do know where it's going, because like just a few months ago there was 10 states and now there's 16, and it's only going to be sooner than later that Tennessee jumps in. What I think is interesting is I entered the college space with Influencer 4 years before NIL began. And it took a coach, and Coach Calipari, who believed that even if NIL didn't come anytime soon, by helping his players just build their brand, grow their followers on social, along with helping them be the best potential pro they can be on the court with their performance, that combination of their roster value and their brand value could be realized in the NBA, right? And I think you already can offer that today at Lipscomb, because you just said 10 players are going to play big-time college football, where kids are all starting to make real money now through NIL, and the bigger the program they go play for, the more money they're going to be able to make outside of their college athletics experience. So are you at least starting to look at how you can show the athlete not just how well you can help them grow their performance value, but their brand value? You guys shoot a bunch of content. You guys can talk to them about social media, what to do, what not to do, to get them ready for college, where they can now monetize that roster and brand value?
Relentlessly. It becomes probably the biggest conversation we have with our players outside of getting ready to play their best football on a Friday night and be great citizens and be great ambassadors in their community, is how do we properly help you grow your brand, represent yourself, your team, your community, your family in a positive way where people want to attach themselves to your brand. And then what we try to do is we try to pour gasoline on their brand. So we've built an entire media department out of our program, 15 million impressions in our 4 years, 5 million already this year, and we're one game into it. Part of that helps because I'm doing my national TV hits with Colin Cowherd and Ryan Russillo and things like that. So it gives me a platform to be able to share what we're doing. But we're doing that for the kid. I don't even open my Twitter. So I don't need any more followers, right? I don't do this anymore. I did that. Those were my ESPN days where brand mattered. I don't care. We don't monetize it through the program, so it's not a big deal for the program. It's really so we can highlight our kids. And we're trying to highlight them in such a way that then they can parlay that into continuing that messaging. And we call it the messaging of goodness. We want football goodness. If we just keep under that what we talk to our kids about is it's football, because that's what you are, and that's how you're going to make a living, is with football. But it's the goodness of football. It's what are you doing for others? How are you getting better? What are you investing into your team? What are you doing outside of the game that people want to see you do? And our kids that are, I try not to use, I don't think we should be using high school names on a podcast, but, we'll just call them our 4 and 5 star kids are really starting to understand that, because now the reaction that they're getting is more than, you're going to get smacked down by this team, or you're so great, or where are you going to college? The narrative's changing to, oh, wow, you're thoughtful. You're thinking ahead. This is bigger than just high school football for you. You're planning a career in this. And I think just that slight little change of narrative of, hey, I'm about football goodness. The goodness of me, I'm going to be the best I can be, but also all the good things football does for myself, my family, and the people around me.
Yeah, before we kind of touch on the goodness part, because I'm a huge proponent of NIL, and I'll go into the reason why in just a second. So from a high school NIL perspective, I've got a couple concerns, and I think the money to the athlete actually shouldn't be, it's not incumbent on the high school or the programs. It's going to be more, from where they're going to school. And so how does that intersect with pay for play, which is going to be a problem that has to work out. I'm also concerned with high school athletes sitting out, or enrolling early when they're not ready, just because of the NIL opportunity that's available. I'm concerned about, state of Florida passing legislation, that allows kids to monetize, and everyone moves there while programs, are depleted in surrounding states. And so listen, I understand, all of the legal issues and that we have to work through, but these things, they're probably not going to be addressed for a while. And so we're going to go through a rocky period with it. And that's all part of getting an efficient marketplace, which it's going to take some time.
I agree. And I also think another big thing that hasn't been talked about enough is that the golden rule, we talk about this in professional sports, the golden rule of professional sports is money makes you more what you were before you got it.
Character reveal. That's all it is.
Makes you more of what you were before you got it. So some of these high school kids are in the really impressionable years of their life. Some of them haven't figured out the maturity piece yet. Some of them wouldn't know what to do. Their families wouldn't know what to do if they all of a sudden had a lot of money. I think that's an issue both at the high school and the college level. I also think that the one that scares me the most is a state passes legislature where they can all go and have the opportunity to make money. Those states open up a bunch of private schools.
Yep.
It's not just the other states that are affected. It's the public schools within that state now start getting affected. And I'm the son of a public school high school football coach. And he didn't have any Power 5 players. He didn't have any college players. But he developed great men that now to this day, he's 75 years old and we'll be at a lunch and he'll have 5, 6, 7 people come up to him and tell him how much he changed their lives with the principles that he taught them. And if high school sports, football specifically, becomes college sports and it's just a place to go make money, well then now you're losing a lot of the goodness again that just public high school football programs can provide.
I agree, and we'll talk to Jim sees this more than because he spends so much time with the institutions. But the two big problems with NIL that are the big concerning pieces are the high school level piece. Because if that starts to happen and it happens out of order, the entire ecosystem gets messed up. So it has to be some semblance of an order where it is fair, at least from a state to state. The big thing where I think we're going to see this year in college sports is the whole transfer portal. Because as a college coach, you will probably say, this kid here who's played in the bright lights 2 years, I know what I'm getting. That's an incredibly valuable commodity to these college coaches. And I think we're going to see a disruption in the transfer process like we have never seen this year.
Well, it's free agency.
It's free agency.
Unfortunately, it's free agency. And if you look
every year now.
Yeah, and if you look at our professional leagues, there is guidelines and guardrails around free agency. The unions, the ownership have done a decent job, I would say, of providing those guardrails. Now, is there tampering? Yeah, we had an example of tampering this year with the Miami Dolphins. But it's frowned upon. It's definitely something that there's oversight to it, and there needs to be the same thing as you combine NIL with the transfer portal. If it was just NIL, I don't think it's quite as dynamic. But because the transfer portal is there, they're at the same time and they're working together, it's just become the wild, wild west of free agency with no guidelines, with no oversight. So that piece, I think, has to be figured out. I agree with you. This year's going to be an explosion, basically a train wreck. But at some point, they have to say, okay, I think NIL is more important. We got to handle this transfer portal thing and make sure they're not working together.
Well, and I think the best athletes who are thinking about the next level are putting NIL in perspective for the most part. They're still going to make money in college, but a Banchero at Duke, for instance, could have made twice as much as he made. But instead, he said no to a lot of deals because he wanted to focus on trying to be the number 1 pick in the NBA draft, right? And even Bryce Young has done a lot of NIL deals, but he could do a lot more if that was his priority. But it's very secondary to him being the top pick quarterback next year in the NFL draft. And so I think if we can get high school kids to think the same way, even when NIL is live in every state, hey, this is a way to make some extra money. But the bigger picture here is this is how you get to that next level and go to the best school that can set you up for the level after that. That's going to be really important to keep it in perspective. Right now, there's people who would argue that even though he won the Heisman and is coming back to what is favored to be the best team in the country and win a national championship this year, that Bryce Young, from a business standpoint, should have entered the portal just to see what his market value would be this year before he goes back to Alabama. And that's how people are starting to think, which is insane for us to hear, because why would you leave the situation you have at Alabama if you're Bryce Young? So I think a lot of this does, like Shannon said, it's a new market. It has to figure itself out. It has to settle. Regulatory uniformity, at least across a conference, is going to be more and more important for somebody to step up and create now. Because if we wait for the federal government to do it, we're going to be talking about tampering and all the other things that come with the transfer portal for many years to come before it's settled, because the federal government's not going to solve this in the next 24 months.
Can I chime in real quick? Just Jim, you brought up a great point with Bryce. I was with Bryce this summer, actually, and I did Larry, DTR, Bryce, and CJ Stroud and myself, we kind of did a round table on some of these issues, just life issues, and talked to Bryce a lot about this. And his perspective was exactly what you said. He's like, yeah, I'd be an idiot not to use what's happening to provide some revenue platforms. But the second it takes away from my team, the second it takes away from my focus of being the first pick of the draft, the second that it does anything to weigh on me, because there's other things not talking about. Now guys are traveling, they're jumping on a plane to go down to Florida to shoot a commercial on their day off when their coaches give them the time to rest and recover. So now they're not recovering, so they're coming back to school. They're not in the same shape. They're not mentally fresh. They're not physically recovered. He's like, I don't want any of that to happen, because that's going to take away from my ability to go do what I did last year when I was completely invested in doing everything in my power to help my team win and be the best player I could be. CJ Stroud chimes in, yeah, I get all these street agents coming to me with all these different opportunities, and they're flashing numbers like 50 grand, 100 grand, 150 grand. But here's all the strings attached to it. And he's like, at some point, all those strings are gonna take me away from what I'm trying to do. The problem though is that we're talking about really mature kids with great families, kids with great high school coaches, kids with great support systems. It's the ones that don't have those support systems. It's the ones that don't come from the same programs as CJ and Bryce and the other really mature kids, that it's the off season that gets them. I'm gonna segue myself here real quick. The biggest danger is I see it, because this is what I see happen when we have them. And when I say we mean the coach. Okay, so when the coach, the coaching staff, the support staff has the kids in our watch, they're fine. Okay, because football's so great, you buy into something bigger than yourself. So you're buying into team, you're buying into purpose, you're buying into the process, you're buying into a goal. The season ends and we lose them. The rules in a lot of these states is season ends, you can't coach them. You can have them for strength and conditioning, but you no longer become the primary voice in their life. The primary voice in their life becomes the street agent, the 7-on-7 coach, the travel ball coach. And that's where a lot of this stuff is going sideways, is once they leave the team structure and they go to the individualized structure, or where somebody else is trying to capitalize on their brand, that's when this thing gets off the rails. And the same thing happens in college. You say, well, at Ohio State, Alabama, they're always in the building. No, they're not. The season ends and they get in there for their training table, they get in there for their lift, they get in there maybe for off-season team building function, but they have all these other voices besides Ryan Day and Nick Saban and Dabo Swinney and the good voices in their life. They have all these other voices that come to their life. And unfortunately, a lot of those voices, they're self-serving for that person, not the player. I think I don't have an answer, but I know this is one of the biggest problems within the high school space and the college space.
So you just segued into exactly what I wanted to ask you. So if you're a college coach, how in the heck do you manage a locker room? So you've got a very small tier up here that are getting big deals, making a lot of money. Then you have probably a lot of other athletes, 20 through 80 that maybe misunderstand their value to a degree. And truthfully, they're probably only worth what they're kind of getting through their education and all the resources that come with it.
And a place that gives them free
all the
burgers
things
on Friday nights
all
or
of
whatever.
It, all of it. And then you've got this next group coming in. You've got 8 to 15 4 and 5 stars
that are making millions.
That are making real money. Okay, so how do you manage that? And how's a coach going to handle that?
So this is my idea. I don't know. Again, I'm not in the college space. Now I'm with these college coaches all the time. They're recruiting my players. I've known many of them for years. I played with a bunch of them, whatever it is. one thing has to change if you're going to have that dynamic, because that dynamic's not going to go away. So we can't change that dynamic. It's just going to grow. You're going to have the super haves, the haves, and the have-nots. And I don't think that's ever going to change. The one thing a player wants more than anything else is to be developed. That's the number one thing they want. A player comes to you and he wants to be his best. He wants to become a better player than he is now. The biggest hindrance to that right now in college football is the 20-hour rule. The 20-hour rule is ridiculous. It's the dumbest rule in college football, that a college coach only gets 20 hours a week to develop this player. Because remember, go back to my last conversation. If now you had all the time you needed to develop that player and they're in your building, well, guess who the primary voice in their life is? The coaching staff.
Yeah.
Now you can nurture more. And that's the conversation that isn't happening. Most of these college athletes, as my high school athletes, want to be nurtured. They want to get better, but they also want to be loved. They want father figures in their lives. They want community. They want to play ping pong together. They want to go to meetings. They want to do these things. And the NCAA is saying, no, you can't be in the building. No, you have to go actually where it's dangerous. You have to go out into the real world where all these other voices are pounding you about being selfish, making money, go do you, go be you, take care of yours. But when they're in the building, it's about others, it's about development, it's become reaching your best. And I'm like, you gotta change that 20-hour rule so that the have-nots feel like at least they have something. They got Coach Dilfer or Coach Shannon who's pouring into them and trying to help them become better people and players.
So we just saw why you love high school sports.
Yeah.
And you sat in my pool house for 4 hours, and all you talked about, literally 4 hours, was development.
Yeah.
And being a part and a shepherd and a mentor and a figure in these kids and all the support that you're building. NIL now, the thing I love about it is I really believe the financial literacy. I really think there's a chance now that the athlete sits in that accounting class.
I agree.
Or that he's paying attention
Totally
a little
agree.
more. I have talked to, 30, 40 former pro athletes, and they're all like, and these are from good families to not support. They all say the same thing. I didn't know what in the heck was going on until maybe my second or third contract, or it was too late.
I'm the same way, and I came from a great family and all the tools to help me.
And the old guard says, well, they're going to lose all the money, or they're going to piss it away, or all those things. I'm like, good. Make those mistakes at this early age before you have kids and families and you make the tens of millions of dollars on it. So I love it from that perspective. It's making entrepreneurs out of these young men. It's actually giving them real life education with real dollars.
Totally agree. And
Listen,
I'll say this. Oh, go ahead, Jim. Go ahead. Sorry.
Well, I was just going to say, there's nothing better about NIL than the fact that it gets kids to work a muscle while they still have the jersey that will set the stage for the rest of their lives. Usually they wait until they're done playing to make connections with people and go out of their shell networking. Usually they wait till after they're done playing to pay more attention to some of the things they learned while they're in college, let alone some of the things they had to learn that their agent did for them. While they're playing now, they have an opportunity to use that jersey. First of all, everybody will respond to them and their emails and their phone calls while they still have the jersey. And now they're being encouraged to go reach out to people. But also, these things that you're talking about, Shannon, it's kind of like a knowledge versus behavior thing. And we all know, like, we can read books and watch seminars and go to classes and get a 4.0. But until we do it, mess up, do it again and get better, that's where we learn, the behavior side. And they're going to learn behaviors. I firmly believe that, while there are a lot of threats about NIL going into high school, the sooner a young man or woman can understand what their value is and why it's that value, and understand what they got to do to grow it, but also manage it, the better sophisticated they're going to be in every conversation, not just with NIL, but if they're fortunate enough to have a contract or if they're just going to go start a career after sports. That's where the great part about NIL, in my opinion, comes in.
So we did it this summer. You guys asked what we're doing. This summer we do what's called kitchen table conversations. The boys come in, they have to sit at a table. You can't sit at a table until the table's full. So right there you get the clicks are destroyed. And we do these really raw conversations about life, and we touch on every subject. Well, we did 2 sessions on financial literacy, and we had a guy come in one time, and we had a Zoom call from another ex-player, ex-NFL player, now is in the financial services business, and he talked to our kids about financial literacy, direct specifically to NIL, because he knows what our room is full of. We know we have a corner and 2 linebackers and a receiver and a quarterback that are all going to make a lot of money. And we started this conversation. It goes back to my 20-hour rule. If I'm being recruited, and Dabo Swinney's recruiting me, Ryan Day's recruiting me, and Nick Saban's recruiting me, I'm the player, I'm the quarterback, I'm a junior in high school, and I go on my official, I better be seeing them say, hey guys, or hey player, Trent, we are going to provide this for you when you get here. You're going to have 5 days a week somebody teaching you financial literacy. You're going to have all these tools at your disposal so that this chunk of money you're going to get through NIL, you're going to learn how to use that, not just now, but in the future, and take care of your family for years to come. Because most likely, if we develop you properly, you're going to play on Sundays. And I think that needs to become a huge part of recruiting, is what are we doing with these kids once we get them to help them grow, nurture, develop their financial literacy muscle.
Yeah, I mean, look, here's the deal. I think this part of education could speed up the development of the athletes by as much as a decade. So many of these kids come from homes where their families didn't go to college. I think, and haven't had those type of experiences. I think this will have generational impact if men like you and programs get serious about educating and bringing this part of it and bubbling it up in the process. So many of these kids, they're not going to play professionally, and if they do, they're not going to do it long enough to actually make a financial difference in their lives. It's about the relationships and the experiences they get that they try to learn from early enough in life.
They need to trust people. That's something that I'm seeing a lot of. Is a lot of them are coming from situations where it's hard to trust what the motivation is for this voice in their life. And when they see that you're trustworthy because what you're doing is you're trying to help them grow as young men. Also, now I don't want to ever drop the headline here. They all want to be really good football players. So you got to give them those tools as well to become really good football players. But they want to grow. That is their nature. They want to grow. They want to trust somebody, and they want to trust that person to help them get them to where they want to go. And now all of it's more than just how fast you are, how you jump, how you catch. It's how are you in the community? How are you with financial literacy? How are you respecting women? How are you with some of these issues that our world's facing right now? Are you getting the tools to be successful in all areas? And if that voice in their life is helping them, well, then they trust that voice. And again, it goes back to the coaches at whatever level. The coaches, you need to hire coaches with that have that intent, and they're not just in it for them. And those coaches have to have coaching staffs that are mentors, not just coaches.
Well said.
Trent, are you starting to hear from coaches coming in, from your players actually, about coaches coming in, recruiting them, and bringing up NIL and talking about it?
College coaches?
Yeah, you got a lot of players highly recruited. Are you starting to, hear from your players that that's a category of the conversation? Like, what's the dialogue when it comes to the coaches
without
now
naming
that
any
NIL?
names
Yeah.
and any schools?
I will say this.
Yeah.
We had pretty much every school in the country come through our building this year. They're walking on eggshells. A lot of them don't know what they can and can't say.
Most of them, probably.
Yeah, most of them don't know what they can and can't say. Most of them don't want to make that the headline. You know what I mean? Most of them, I think there's this understanding that this is going to become a conversation as we move forward. But right now, the good coaches are trying to establish relationships with the coach, with the player. They only have a small window they can do this. The head coach especially is only on the road for so long. The other coaches coming out of the 2 years of COVID where they were so restricted with recruiting, they're just getting back on the road. More important to them, they're trying to, like I said, establish a relationship. They want to see the kid practice, play. They want to see him in the classroom. They want to see how he is outside of the football context and see if his character matches what their program provides. So really, it was not a headliner. It was that kind of subtle understanding that this is gonna be something, and when it is something, who are we gonna be talking to?
The reason I bring it up isn't just because of the fact that, we keep hearing it's a part of recruiting, and it's probably even more a part of portal conversations with proven athletes that are testing the market than it is even with high school athletes who still have to prove themselves at the college level. But also I ask because, just like there's rules around how many hours a week or a month student athletes can be playing their sport. And of course, a lot of that came about from the NCAA, not to defend them. Believe me, that's not how I make my living. But, it came about because everybody was saying student athletes are like full-time employees. So they created time management rules, right? And as you said, it ends up putting the student athlete at a disadvantage because now they can't be around the leaders that they look to as much. But the other rule that's hampered the student athlete when it comes to NIL is how involved the school can be, the coach can be, anybody on staff for the university can be in NIL. And it's created these gaps where street agents like CJ Stroud, you said, brought up to you, or even collectives of donors have started to have direct relationships with young student athletes. And a lot of times student athletes are signing something they don't even know what it is. They don't even know what they're supposed to do. So I was just wondering if any of that's come up in how your student athletes in high school at your program are looking at the school they're going to go to, based on any of the resources they're going to be offering to help them with NIL.
Yeah, I think one thing we've talked about internally as a staff is we want to make sure if they're coming to us for advice or for people that they can trust, that we vetted those people. A lot of them are going to get, let's use an example. High school player A, he's a junior, he's being highly recruited. He's going to leave us after December 1st, and he's going to go out in the 7-on-7 world. He's going to be playing basketball. He's going to be doing this other thing, and he's going to have all these people say, hey, I can help you. I'm a lawyer, right? I can help you with these contracts. Or I'm an agent. Or I once negotiated a Jimmy John's deal for my insurance company. And the player doesn't know, can I trust this person? Can I not trust this person? And again, we've established this, that a lot of people have poor intent and they're trying to capitalize on the athlete themselves. We're trying to say as a staff, okay, is there a group from our network? And we're very lucky. We're in Green Hills. We have unbelievable people in our community, but we're starting to go to the lawyers in our community. We're starting to go to people that have been in big business. We're going to business owners, corporate executives, and saying, hey, can we create a group of people that when these players have questions, they know they can trust you. Can you steer them to the right people? Because they got to be steered to the right people.
Where there's nothing in it for them.
And I think that's the biggest thing. There's nothing in it for the people that are helping these young players navigate these muddy waters. As soon as there's something in it for the person, my personal opinion at this age is don't trust them. That's different than the NFL. I've paid agents millions, right? They have a really big job, and in that relationship on the front end, they're going to represent you well, and they're going to get paid their due. When I was on TV, same thing. If you get the right agent, he's going to help you get a better TV contract, and he deserves his nut. But not in the high school space, not in this college space. We need more mentors again, people that will come alongside and say, hey, my uncle was an agent. He did Troy Aikman's contract. He's willing to help you navigate these waters, do a couple deals for you, and he doesn't want anything out of it. He just wants to help you. Now, that's somebody you can trust. But as soon as the slick guy comes in with the 3-piece suit and he's like, hey, listen, man, I'm going to get you this, I'm going to get you that. And the kid says, well, what's in it for you? Well, don't worry about that, man. I'll get mine. I'm going to take 10%. That's not a big number. I would be like, danger ranger, stay away, want nothing to do with that person.
You're probably the exception and not the rule, though. I mean, you have an unbelievable program. You look at things from a foundation of hiring men and women from the coaching to the staff. Mm-hmm. I mean, I would assume, and I don't know this, we haven't talked about it, is that when things happen with your athletes, they probably run to you guys before they even go to their parents in many situations. That's the kind of culture that you've built. We all know that
that's not everything.
The high school landscape does not look like that. Yeah. So, it's going to be interesting. But I will say this.
Go ahead,
Jim. Sorry.
I will say this. I think that athletes are learning faster than I thought. We did an NIL summit with 300 athletes in Atlanta, and the amount of athletes that came up to me and said, sir, just want to make sure I understand, how does influencer make money? And, just answering that question. I mean, we built our whole model to prepare for answering that question, which is we only get paid by your school. If you go to a school that has our software, you can use it. We take nothing from your deals. I mean, we wanted to show that motive early in our financial model, but I think kids are asking that question more and more and more because they're seeing horror stories of some young man signing away all of his NIL rights for $50,000 because he's never seen that amount of money before. And now he can't do NIL deals anywhere else, and somebody's making all this money off him. More of those stories happen. Hopefully they'll learn faster because they don't, at most high schools, have the resources that Trent is putting together at Lipscomb. I mean, that's awesome, Trent. That's going to be huge for your kids.
Trent, this has been an amazing first show for us. We had a lot of options we could go to, but you checked a lot of boxes because of so many areas of sports that you've been involved with and what you're building as a foundation, as you've said it, to allow these athletes to be the best people, best athletes, best fill in the blank they can be. One last question before you leave, or one statement, one platform. If you could give a high school 4-star, 5-star type athlete, top 200 kid that can basically go wherever he wants to go. If you could give him one piece of advice around balancing, the rigors of academics, being, a developing athlete, and now NIL, balancing that, what piece of advice would you share with that elite type athlete?
Two things. Let it breathe. I've seen too often you're so quick to jump into, I gotta do boom, 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 boom. And if I don't do it now, I'm gonna miss out. You're not gonna miss out on anything. Nothing's gonna pass you up, right? So let it breathe. Ask good questions. And then the last thing, more important than any of the other stuff, is, are you surrounding yourself with people that are getting something from you or doing something for you? And I think just ask yourself that question. Are they getting something from you or are they doing something for you? And that comes with a coach too. I'm not going to take a shot at coaches, but we've had an influx of ambition-driven coaches. That coach is using you for his ambition instead of a coach that is giving you, pouring into you, and you both win. If he wants a better job, he'll get a better job because you're a better person, a better human, a better football player, and making more money in NIL, right? So it all mixes together. But athletes got to start asking that question. They got to start asking this question. Is this somebody getting something from me or are they doing something for me? If you get that answer, you'll usually go down the right road. Brother,
you killed it. I knew you would.
Appreciate you, man.
Yeah,
this is fun. This is a great show. This is going to be awesome. It's going to be great for kids to learn, to watch too, because now they can kind of see the conversations going on about them behind the scenes that, their heads are spinning. They don't know what's going on in life a lot of times. They need to sit down and listen to this pod, watch this pod, the other resources out there to help them grow in this area.
Love it. Love what you're doing.
Appreciate you
Awesome
guys.
stuff, Trent, man. You're living out what you're calling others to do, and that's the best part, is like seeing what you've built in the short period of time you built it, man. Congrats. And, keep impacting young people, man. The more we can do that, the more we can change really the future of this world and this country. So appreciate you, brother.
Thanks, Jim.
Yep.
We appreciate you tuning in to the LeverUp podcast, available right now on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. So make sure you subscribe, and make sure you subscribe to both the On3 and Influencer YouTube channels, where you can catch all the video content, cut-ups, mashups from all of the LeverUp podcasts. And of course, follow us on Twitter and Instagram as well at On3 and at Influencer. Thank you so much for tuning in today, and stay tuned for more great guests to come on the LeverUp podcast.